Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we'll start this Avodah Zarah daf Mem Daled. We're going to begin on the bottom of Mem Gimel Amud Beis by the new Mishnah. Let's see the Masnisim. Rav Yossi Omer Shaychek v'Zayda l'Ruach Omata l'Yam. Now, a person is allowed when it comes to the Avodah Zarah that you could grind it up and then throw it into the wind, and then by doing so, it will be a good bittul. Oh, matal yam, you throw into the water. Amr lo, so this we saw before, maybe that's not enough, because afhu nasa zevel, because you're going to end up benefiting from it because it's fertilizer for the ground. Shenemar, the pasuk says, they're not to use it in any way, and therefore people are going to be using it. Rashi says, by you grinding it up, you're going to cause people to be nichshol, and therefore that shouldn't be allowed. Says the Gemara. So Tanya, Rav Yosef, look for Nemar, but we have the pasuk V'yaschatarschem asher asisem, as we continue into the next daf. Regarding to the sin which you did regarding the Egel HaZahav, as the Egel HaKachti, V'esroif oiso be'esh, he burnt it in fire, V'echais oiso tochen hetev, that Moshe ground it up very well, Ad asher dak, and will offer until it was like dust, V'eshach el afarai, el hanachol hayarid min ahar. So this pasuk seems to imply that it's not an issue that he made it into this dust, and then he pounded it up and ground it up very well. So Omer lo misham raya haryu omer v'yazer al pnei hamayim. It says that he dispersed it on the water, al pnei hamayim, not on the ground. V'yishakas b'nei Yisrael, and they drank from it. So l'neschaben el l'boitkin kasaitais. So what Moshe did was he wanted people to be able to drink from this in order to be able to determine whether or not, miraculously, to determine whether they were ovid the Avodah Zarah. So clearly he didn't grind it up for the purpose of throwing it into the ground and therefore using it as fertilizer. So in that case, it's certainly not a right. Amr lahem Rabbi Yosef, look for a nemar. Okay. But we have another pasuk in Divrei HaYomim. It says, "V'gam macha aim Asa hamelach," the mother of Asa, Hesira megavira asher Asa sala shera. So they took the Avodah Zarah, v'yichrois Asa es mipsalta v'yadek v'yisur benachal kidrein. Here, he didn't grind it up and give it for people to drink. No, he threw it into Nachal Kidron. So l'chayr, it's a raya that even though it was potentially used for fertilizer, it's not an issue. So how do we understand that? So the answer is Amri lo mishum raya Nachal Kidron inu megadol tzmachim. So when it comes to that particular location, it's impossible for anything to grow there. So therefore, it's obviously not a raya that he specifically threw these ashes that he ground up into a place in which it wasn't shaykh for any growth. Below, is that true that it can't grow there? Bosanya elu misarben ba'ama. These and these, says Rashi, the damim hachitzainim, the blood that were from the outside, the damim hapanimim. And the blood from the inside, shishirehim nishbachin al yisoid mizbech achitzayin. The leftover blood was poured onto the yisoid of the outer mizbech, vehein yardin min hayisoid loritzba, and it dripped onto the ground. And it used to go there, v'yotzil lenachal kidron, and it says that it went to nachal kidron, v'nimcharin legananim lezevel mo'alan behen. It says that anyone who would use the earth from that place will actually be over me'ilah. because what were they doing? They were using it for fertilizer. So we see that Nachal Kidron actually did have, it was fertile. Says Rashi, Lav carbon mi'ila kaimer. Not that you're chayav to bring a carbon mi'ila, din mi'ila b'dam kodshin. There's no din mi'ila on the blood. Kidamin b'perik haitziloi. El asul hanis mehen el b'damin. So it just means it's asur to get hana from it. So, but that's all it means. But nonetheless, it's a kasha. So when it says minkamis yesh, there's different locations. Yesh makam megalat smachim. Yesh makam shen megalat smachim. So you're right. The place that we're talking about, where you'd be over Me'ilah, is in a situation where there is growth. However, when it came to Asa and his pouring the fragments of the Avodah Zarah, the dust, so that was a place was not Megavel Tzmachim. So what does it mean, Mifaltsta? What exactly did that mean in the pasuk? So maybe Yehuda, it means dehavi maflia letzinaisa, that it was a great leitzonus. It was a great mockery that took place, as we'll see. Kedatani Rav Yosef, Kamin Zachris Asasolva, regarding his male member, the Hayasin Nivelas Lo B'chol Yoim, and he was boil every day. Amar Rav Yosef look for Nemar. So that's that. So then we have another kasha. It says V'chisis Nachash Nachayches Asher Asa Moshe. So Moshe Rabbeinu made the Nachash Nachayches, this copper snake, and this was the way, as the Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah says, anyone who looked at it would live. So what ended up happening is that because people were misusing it, so if we look in this pasuk, it says "V'hu heiser sabamois v'shibras amatzevos v'karses ha'ashera." So he got rid of all the avodah zarah, and this is Malachim Beis. V'chites nachash nachayshus nasheras Moshe kiyad hayamim ahim hayibnei Israel mikatrim loy v'ikru loy nechushtan. So basically, people were worshiping it, and therefore, because of that, he got rid of it. So again, clearly we see that this is avodah zarah, and it says v'chites, and he ground it up. So when Moshe initially was instructed to create this nachash nachayches, it's with drushes. It says asalacha l'cha mishalcha. It's Moshe's own possession. So why does that matter? The Gemara says, you can't answer something which is not yours. So the fact is, if it's Moshe's, it can't become usher even if it's used for avodah zarah. He didn't actually have to destroy it. But since the Yidden were falling, making mistakes, so Amar V'chitu, he just decided to destroy it. But the truth is, it wasn't usher. Okay. Armalahem v'loik for Nemar. Okay, but we have another pasuk. It says, just find the pasuk. V'yazvu sham es atzi behem v'yisimem David v'anashim. Just in the Shmuel Beis. So this is referring to the idols. So my mashma dahai v'yasem David lishna dezruyahu, that he threw it to the wind. Kinamatam Rabbi Yosef, because the pasuk says as well tizreim ruach tisaim. So we see that it says that something about the wind will carry it. Umatarkaminan tazrinun varuach metaltalinoin. It'll carry it away. So we see again that they threw this away. They threw the dust, and therefore we weren't concerned of it. So Misham Raya, Hari hu oimer v'yisrafu b'esh. It was burnt in fire. Umedaloikse v'yisrafu v'yisem shemam v'yisem mamish. Komakum kasha kroyadadi. Okay, but there's a steer in these psukim. Okay, the Rav Huna Rami, he has a steer. Ksiv, on one hand, it says, V'yarma David v'yisr b'eish, he burnt it up with fire. Ksiv, v'yisa'im, that he carried it off. So, Kasha, kan kaidim sheba iti hagiti, kan la'achar sheba iti hagiti. So, what is that? So, before iti hagiti was mavatalit, so at that point, it was usr. However, once iti hagiti was mavatalit, it wasn't necessary anymore. Let's look in Rashi. Uva iti uvitloi. V'hader v'yasim David iti hagiti oivid kachavim hoya. He was an ovid kachavim, and that's why he had the ability to mavatal this. T'chsev yikach has ataras malcham. He took the crown mi'al roish on his head. Umishalka kavar zahav, and he weighed it like kikar zahav of a talent of gold. So mishar yisuri hananinu. So what do you mean? It's asur b'hana. So Amar Rav Nachman iti agiti ba ubitla, that he was mavatal, and that's why it became mutter for use. Okay. So mishka kikar zahav hechi matzi manachla. How it's too heavy? How is he able to wear it? So Amar Rav Royal Noach al Roish David. It was fit that it should be put on David's head. So the Rashi, it was very heavy. So he says, no, it just doesn't mean that he was actually put on his head, but it means that it's fit for David. It just shows the chashivas of David HaMelech, but doesn't mean that he actually had it on his head. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Chanina Omer, Evan Shoeves Haisa, it was like a magnet stone. Haisabo, the Habi Darula, that was like was floating on. Lezer Omer, Evan Yikar Haisabo was very precious. Shishava Kikar Zahav. It had the value of a Kikar Zahav. It wasn't the weight, but it was the value. Question 7. So again, because it was Moshe's, so madua. So then, why was it like an avodah zarah? So he said because he ground it up anyway. Because since the Yidden were stumbling with it, so therefore, because of that, he said better to basically destroy it. Okay. Fine. And then we have the pasuk quoted. It says, Zais haisali ki pikudecha natsarti. So it's a pasuk in Tehillim. So what is this? So my kaimer, what is being said over here? So hacha kaimer. B'schar shibikaduch natsarti zais haisali le'edos. So the reward that I was created, this crown was given to me as testimony. So my edu. So Rabbi Shimon Levi shaymanicha b'machat tefillin v'hoylam masay, and he would put it on the place of his tefillin, and it fit there. Abba haboy nuchi tefillin. What do you mean? Doesn't he have to wear tefillin? So Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak makom yesh b'roish sheroy l'neach by shtei tefillin. Actually, the head is capable of having two pair of tefillin, two tefillin shorosh on the head at the same time. And then it says, "V'yotziu es ben hamelech v'yinu alav es hanezer v'es ha'edus nezer." What is that? Zazu kalila. This is a special garment. Edus Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav Edus hu lebeis David shekol haroyal malchus hum masai v'chol she'enu royal malchus enu hayol masai. So anyone who is fit for malchus, look at Rashi. So v'yotzi as ben hamelech b'yo'ush ksiv. It says hayotziu v'nostalav hanezel edus shehu mizera hamalucha. So this was to demonstrate that he was connected to malchus. Fine. Then the pasuk says, let's get this next pasuk. V'Adoniah ben Chagis misnase lemor ani emoich I'll be the king v'yaslo rechev v'proshim, to give him chariots and horses v'chamushim ish ratzim afanev, and his 50 people that ran in front of him. So the ani emloich. So Rabbi Yehuda Amarav shemisnase l'hoy lamoy v'loy hol masay v'yaslo rechav proshim chamishim ish ratzim alafanev my revusai. What does that come to tell you? So tanakum nitule tchoil v'chakuke kapois haragalim hoyu. Says Rashi, all of them, it was taken out their spleens. Hatchoil machbi. This koiki kabs of galim notel habasur min etzem. There's like flesh taken out from the bone. V'lo hayam margishim b'kaitzim. So basically, this way, if they would step, they wouldn't feel the thorns and thistles and things like that. Okay. Let's see if there's a question over here. Okay, let's keep going. Mem Daled Amud Beis. Let's see the next Mishnah. Says the Masdis. Shoyl Pruklus ben Peluspus Esrog Gamliel Ba'akai. So, yesterday's daf we had questions of Rabbi Gamliel regarding the moon. Here we have another kasha that was asked to him. Shoyl Roichetz b'merchatz shel Afrutiti, that he used to bathe in this place, which there was an Avodah Zarah basically there in this merchatz. So Mullah kosu b'sarastem l'yid b'yadchem u'umma min chayrim v'mniat ha'roiches b'merchatz shel Purditi. What are you doing over here? You shouldn't be bathing here because there's an Avodah Zarah over here. So Mullah, he said, Ein meshivim b'merchatz. I can't answer you now. I can't speak divrei Torah in any language in a bathhouse. However, when he left, Mullah said like this: Ani lo ba'asi, I did not come bigvula in its boundary. He ba bigvuli, she came into my boundary. So what does that mean? Says Rashi, Shamerchatz koinamla. The bathhouse came before this idol that came here. But merchatz nasel choil habol merchatz. People used to always come to this bathhouse to bathe. V'loy kol himenu sh'nei goizelas as a rabbin. So it's not right to all of a sudden it's like gazela. That now people can't use the public works of the bathroom in the bathhouse. The fact that you put an avodah zarah there doesn't mean anything, right? So the merchatz was here before the idol. Ein oimrim nasa merchatz noi la'afrutiti. We don't say that the bathhouse is beautiful for the idol. El oimer nasa afrutiti noi la'merchatz. It was to beautify the bathhouse. In other words, the bathhouse is the ikr, and there, right, the idol adorns the bathhouse. So the bathhouse is the main thing. That's the ikr. It's the main thing. That's why it's mutter. Davar acher, another interpretation. Okay, davar acher, another interpretation. Im noisin locha mamin harbi. If you give me a lot of money, yata nichnas levados chachavim shalcha arum. You wouldn't stand in front of avodah zarah naked. Ubal keri umashtin b'faneha. Right? So you wouldn't have seminal emissions or urinate in front of your idol. It's disrespectful. However, this idol is right next to this drainage pipe of sewage. Everyone's urinating right there. So obviously this is not a true avodah zarah. Lo nemar elo elohehen eshenayig bo mishum eloha aser. Only if you're noig it as a god, lowercase g, then it's aser. Esheinu noig bo mishum eloha muter. So basically, Rabbi Gamliel gave multiple reasons why it's not an issue. Question 8. Elu gimel tshuvas heishiv Rabbi Gamliel. So first of all, he said the bathhouse came first. Second of all, the idol adorns the bathhouse, which shows that the bathhouse is really the ikr. And also, so this is not a normal way of worshiping an idol, so therefore it's mutter. Says Gemara, "Vehechi avid hachi." How could he have done this? V'yomer Rabba Bar Chanam Rabbi Yochanan b'chol makom mutter l'har her chutz mebeis merchas beis hakisei. How is he able to have here horim of Torah? Maybe you could say divrei Torah in a bathhouse as long as you speak in English. Rabbi, no, you can speak Hebrew in a bathroom as long as you're just speaking about the Yankees or whatever it is. But if you're saying divrei Torah, even if it's divrei chayil, it's actually like English or whatever, Spanish, it's also. So Tana Kashiyotza, he said, when I left, Armelo ein mashivin b'merchatz. He said, I couldn't have answered you in the bathroom. So basically, you're right. He didn't have Hirhurim in the bathroom. Rabbi Tshuva Genuva Heshivu Rabbi Gamliel Oisa Hegmoin. So this interesting answer is considered to be a tshuva genuva. Says Rashi, Kolimer dochku. Like he kind of like pushed him off. Yani oimer enu genuva. So my genuvu seha. The Carmelo, he said to him, Zuah menes al pi habib, that the idol is by a pit or wastewater. V'chol am mashtin p'fanel, and everyone's urinating in front of it. So v'chi mashtin p'fanel my havi. So what? V'yamar Rava pa'or yochiach shemafrin l'fana b'chol yom ve'enu batel. So when it comes to Baal Pa'or, people would defecate in front of it, and no one was mavatal it. So that shouldn't be a good answer. No, it says v'ani oimer enu genuva. Why? Zuah v'idasa b'kach. Is the difference. By the Baal Pa'or, that is the avodah of relieving yourself in front of this idol, however you understand it. However, if when it comes to another type of an idol, like shel afaruditi, so that is not how you're supposed to worship it, and that's why it demonstrates, obviously, it's allowed. So Rabbi Genufta mahacha. The Karmele ani lo ba'asi begvula the hiba begvoyli. Says that, well, it's not a problem because the bathhouse came first. The hiba begvula may have, so what? But not a v'eskachavim sheishlo merchatz as a bathhouse, ogin or garden nehenen mehen. You can still get benefit. Shaloi b'toiva ve'en nehenen mehen b'toiva. So what does that mean? You're allowed to get benefit as long as there's no connection, says Rashi, shel yachzik taiva l'toimin, so that the priests aren't acknowledged. However, you can't in case where they are acknowledged. So v'ani oimer enu genuva. Shaloi b'tevet Rabbi Gamliel ki b'toivas acherem dami. So in this situation, we say that's it's mutter because it was, again, shaloi b'toiva. It's without giving any credit to the priests. Rashimi barchia oimer genufta mahacha. The karmer lozu oimedes al habib v'chol al mashtin b'fanav havicha mashtin b'fanav my habib nan rock b'fanav. You spit in front of it. Hishtim b'fanav. Urinate. Gira b'zarik bas hatzaya. You drag the Avodah Zarah and throw so at it. Harizu einu batil. It's not bottle. Navani oimer. So if at the time that you do this, it was just for a one moment thing because you're angry, law, and then afterwards you're Matthias, so then in that situation it's still an issue. This is not just a one-time thing. This is continuous, and therefore it's different. Rava Barul Aimer Genufta Mahacha. The Karmelei Ein Aimerim Nasimerchatz Noi La'afariti. That we don't say that the bathhouse was beautifying the Avodah Zarah. El Nasa Aphrodite noi lemerchatz. But rather, the idol is adorning the bathhouse, which shows that the bathhouse is the ikr. V'chi yermer nasa merchatz l'Aphrodite noi my havav l'sanyo omer ba'ezel v'eskachavim. If a person says this house is for idols, kaizel v'eskachavim lomer klum. It's nothing. Shein hekdesh avodas kachavim. Says Rashi, ba'mira. This words alone won't work ad shiakrivena lefaneha b'takroivis, until you actually are using the items for Avodah Zarah. Furthermore, not only ha'omer ba'ezel v'eskachavim kaise v'eskachavim lomer klum shein hekdesh avodas kachavim. Yani omer enu genuva nehida sira lo mitzara noi miyaika. Okay, we're gonna stop there. Let's see if there's another question. TA 26. Im hoya omer nasa merchatz noi la'Aphrodite ha'im hoya motel lirchait sham olahanas b'merchatz. I got this totally wrong. So lirchait's aser dahavi noi lihanis dahavi noi lahanis mutter de lo b'tayva shein hektish l'avodah zara. Okay. Question TB 27. Im hoya merchatz nasa noi. Same question. So let me just read this one more time, make sure that we understand it. So again, this is TA 26. So a person says Nasa merchatz noi la'Aphrodite, right? And so a person says that. So we say it's asur lirchaitz. However, to get hana, it's mutter. Okay. So it says ein omer Nasa merchatz noi la'Aphrodite. El nasa Aphrodite no lamerchatz. So v'chemer nasa merchatz l'Aphrodite noi my hava. Well, stand your omer bias. So he said again. So hektish of the chavim ani omer enu gavaya. So nihi the isura lo mitzvah noi miyaika. So that's the answer right there. So I understand it's maybe not asur to get hana, but it's still lanoi, and therefore because of that it's also to have rechitza. Says Rashi, Yihavi rechitza noi lavodas kachavim asur yafais avodas kachavim afagav d'isru lo mitzvah merchatz b'hana. So that's clear that that's what the answer is. Adkan.